So in today's episode, I'm going to show you step by step how a beginner can do a DIY mini split system. We're going to cover everything from electrical hookups to the all-important vacuum pump and vacuuming down the system. This right here alone tends to turn a lot of people off. It is not complicated. I just got done installing my Della system. Super easy. We've got some good step-by-step tips to share with you. All right, so here's the room that we're going to be installing this in. This is my processing room where we spend hours processing vegetables, meat, canning, and doing other things that make the room very hot. So we need a better AC in here. Not to mention I have no heat for this room, so I wanted to get a unit that definitely had heat. So I've got the main head unit laid out. This is all of our indoor stuff, and this is what comes in the box. Right on top is a template to where we can attach this to the wall. We see our drill points, our layout points for our bracket. So we're going to take this to the wall and actually mark all the mounting locations and get this nice and level. Here's the main head unit, and we need to talk about this really quick because it's very important that you pay attention to this before install. And by the way, I went with their higher end Optima series. This is a 23 series unit, very energy efficient. So the reason I did that is because my entire shop is run off of solar. So in the main box is the head unit. We need to talk about that real quick. Your power wire that runs out and connects to the outdoor unit. Some rubber feet should you have an area with some high vibration. This goes on the main outdoor unit. A drain connection, a drain hose, and a remote. You need to pay attention to this before you order one or dive into the installation. The filter media is on the top hand side. This has to be popped up and blown out from time to time. Well, due to that, I had planned on mounting this unit up here because I wanted to blow down this really long room. Layout, again, is key. You want to try to move air down and back through your entire space. But because we have to pop this up, and if you read right here on your layout, 8 inches from the top of the paper to the top of this unit, you have to pull air in from up here in order to put it back out down here. So this cannot be near the roof because you can't clean the filter, and you need to be able to pull in adequate air, otherwise you'll basically choke the unit down. So that means I either have to go to this wall, which I decided against because there's a whole nother room back there. We need to run outside where we're mounting the unit. So that left me with this wall right here. So now what we need to do is get this template up on the wall. Again, make sure we have that adequate spacing. We want to get the template nice and level. That is key whenever it comes to these units. There's a drip tray in the bottom that'll fill up with condensation. You want your unit nice and level so the condensation can exit on either side. You can hook the drain hose up on either side, I do believe, but we're going to exit out the main side that we run all the other lines that's in the back side of this. The other thing that you're going to have to do is have some sort of pad set up outside. If you're going to do concrete, you need to do that early. I chose concrete because we're in a hurricane state and I wanted the extra hold down power of it. If you're not comfortable doing concrete like I did, what you can do is order plastic trays off of Amazon that are built specifically for these mini split units, and it's a quick, easy setup process, avoiding the extra mixing and working of the concrete. Okay, so what we're going to do is I measured down 8 inches from the ceiling per the manufacturer's recommendations. I made a center line on this template, which they already have marked out for you. Made a center line on this section of wall, and I'm going to just line those up. We're going to use a level, make sure our template is nice and level. Now we'll take this off because we're going to remove this. We're just using it for marking a few things out. Double check my level again, absolutely perfect. So you can see my little mark I made on the wall, little mark that I made center of the cardboard. Line those up. Again, my spacing is nice and good. Now you can see it's telling us everywhere that we need to drill a hole and mount a screw. Plus we also need to mark and go out the wall this way. We're going to be doing an entire hole cutout to run our line set, drain line, and power wire through to the outside. So another thing we want to pay attention to when you look in the manual, we're about to cut this hole inside. Well, it needs to go down at a slight angle, up to 1/2 to 3/8 of an inch down. And that is so whenever we run our tube through the wall, the drain hose especially, it drains down. You do not want to drill straight through or potentially have the hose running upwards. That will not allow this drain tray in here to drain out properly, giving you issues with your unit. So you're going to see whenever I drill in through this hole, I'm going to drill down at a slight angle and poke out the outside wall. All right, so we're getting ready to hang this on the wall. I have my hole through. I've already marked the outside. We just need to go outside and drill that, but I poked a little hole through. You can see the daylight, and I did drop it down a ½ inch as required so we can drain properly. Went ahead and shot some extra screws in. We're mounted to plywood. This is a very lightweight unit anyways. So here's our line sets right here, and here is our drain. We're actually gonna gently pull these out. This line set can run this direction, out this side knockout that I showed you. It can be spun all the way around to this side knockout, or it can run straight out the back like we're about to do that. But I think it's gonna be easier to go ahead and run our wire through right here. That'll be this one. Don't pay attention to the colors because they are labeled. Green is ground. Everything else has just a number on it. As you can see, white's number 2. There's number 1. We're gonna pop this front cover up. It'll hold itself. We're gonna remove this screw right here, and then we can connect our wiring inside once we feed it in from the back side where I just showed you. I just think it's gonna be a whole lot easier to go ahead and connect the wires now and feed them out the hole instead of trying to do it after the fact. That's gonna be a little hard to see in here, but I'll do the best I can. We're gonna loosen up. This is a wire clamp or a cable clamp. We'll take that off until after we get all of our wires connected, because we're gonna wanna pinch and hold those so they can't pull out. And maybe you can see here if I bump the brightness up, you're labeled 1, 2, 3, and ground for green. Now you're gonna notice the wire colors up top are a different color. Do not pay attention to that. Just focus on the number. And you're gonna notice there is a flat section that the screw's actually pinching. Make for sure the fork of the wire connector goes underneath those flat silver sections, not just the screw. Now we put our cover back on. Go outside, drill the hole through the wall on the other side, which we've already marked, and we can mount this unit. All right, so you can see I was nice and gentle. This is copper. We don't want to go fast. It does bend, but you do not want to kink it or you've ruined your unit. So I straighten this out. It's designed to do that. Here's our drain hose. Don't forget, the drain hose has to constantly be going down at an angle all the way till it reaches the ground. So we're going to put the drain hose on the bottom side of this bundle. We've got our power cable that we're going to put anywhere we feel like, and they provided some wrap. We're going to wrap all this up as one piece, focusing to keep the drain on the bottom so we can poke it right through that hole that we're going to go out there and cut. It's about impossible to show y'all this electrical run in the dark, so we'll have to talk about it in just a minute. I had to kill the breaker to this room so I could safely work in my sub panel. Y'all, this is one of those things, if you're not comfortable with electrical, this part you should hire out. You can still save a ton of money doing the DIY HVAC portion. And some codes or jurisdictions may not even allow you to do your own electrical. Some do, like our area, and some areas don't even require permits. That's up to you to check it out. But the electrical is very straightforward. We'll briefly go over some of it. Let me connect a few wires and tell you about this disconnect right here, because you're gonna want one of these whether you hire an electrician or buy one yourself. All right, so now it's time to place our unit on whatever your pad is. I did concrete again because I'm in a hurricane state and I want that 100 and something pounds holding this unit down. But if you want to be more DIY friendly, just buy you a plastic pre-made base. Now I apologize for the poor lighting over here because we're in the shade, but that is something you and I need to discuss. So take a look at my location. This is very important. You need to plan your project out ahead of time, not only for electrical reasons, which again we're going to go over in a minute, but location and distance where you're going to mount the head unit, because you've got 16 feet of lines to run down, so everything needs to fit together. By the way, this is a good time to mention you can order longer line sets, or you can also cut them shorter, but you're going to need to pick up what's called a copper flaring tool. That's worth having on hand in case one of these lines are damaged, or if you want to shorten them up. I didn't get one, so I'm taking a gamble that the flares are good on the current line set provided, but I can always order one in quickly. But there's certain distances and lengths that you're going to want to limit yourself to. Della, that's a question for them, because there's only but so much pre-charged refrigerant in here, so you can't have a line set go too terribly long, or you're going to have to top your system off. Now the beauty of this system is already pre-charged for the 16-foot included line set, so I know we're good to go there. But you see the location that we have? I said recording light's bad because we're in the shade. That is critical with these. So it just so happens my processing room's on the north side of my building. So this stays in the shade almost all day long, except only in summertime when the sun moves and it comes through this gap late in the afternoon. So my unit is almost always in the shade. That's going to make it far more efficient. Plus all the insulations on your line set, your electrical, all that stuff, well, it's just not going to get bleached out or deteriorated by the sun. But keeping the heat directly off the unit is a bonus. Now I understand some of y'all are probably going to have to install your units where there is sunlight based on where the room is that you're needing the AC. All right, pay attention. Here is another critical step with any air conditioners. As you can see, we've got a big fan right in here pulling air across all these condenser coils. So as we're pulling refrigerant out of the room, you're putting it through here, you're pulling the air across, you're compressing it, you're cooling it down, and you're sending it back up. That is how a compressor works. That's how an AC works. But the fact that we're pulling so much air in, look at how large this side of the condenser coil is here. And here, you have to allow adequate airspace around this unit. Della recommends at least a foot gap all the way around the unit. I have definitely given that. Now, I should also note, you would never want to install a unit like this near a heat source like a dryer vent. We do not have a dryer in this room anymore and never will put one in again. That's obsolete. We left it there to keep the hole plugged. The last thing to mention, do not tip any type of refrigerant units. I see people do this all the time. You typically want to get this in from the shipper. I like to let refrigerant units sit for 24 hours in the upright position. Don't be flipping this over on the table, mounting stuff to the bottom, flipping it back over, and then firing it up within a few hours. All right, back to the install. This right here is called a non-fuse disconnect. Now it's still got a cover to go on the front, but I got to connect my wires. This is going to be key and most likely code required for your area as well. It's also worth mentioning, I'm running 120 volts, but you may be getting a 240 volt unit. Does not matter. You'll actually be hooking up a hot here for 240 volts, whereas 120 is a neutral and one single hot. But ultimately what we're trying to do is the neutral comes in from the breaker panel, and then we're gonna hook this neutral up going to the unit right here. We're gonna hook this hot up right here. So we're making a loop through, but you can break it with this non-fuse disconnect right here. This plugs in one direction. You see when on is up, you've connected all the wires together. You can pull it, you can flip it over, now off is on, and it's not actually making contact in there more, or you can just pull it and leave it out. Why is that important? Because if you ever need to service one of these units and get an HVAC tech out, they might not have access to the breaker panel inside. Or if the unit's shorting out or there's a problem, you need a means of quick disconnect. So this goes to the neutral in my sub panel inside, or it may be your main panel, depending on where you're hooking this up. Y'all seen that I just ran the wire inside to my sub panel right here. This hot, the black, because this is a 120 volt unit, goes to my breaker. Ground goes to the ground in that panel. Same color wires are going to go out. I made what's called a whip right here. This is called liquid tight flexible conduit, and I've got a special compression liquid tight fitting right here that makes it waterproof. We'll probably put one on this other end as well. I just run my wires through and out. Now this whip is going to come around and go into the electrical side right here. We're going to take this cover off, but you're going to run the electrical in from the head unit from the inside. Remember this wire right here that we run out with the unit. And then we're going to run power in and make all our connections. Remember that 1, 2, and 3 in there plus ground? Very straightforward. Down here is going to be our copper line set. Okay, now that we have the side electrical cover removed, this is going to be very difficult to record, but it's extremely straightforward. You see the 1, 2, 3, 4, N for neutral, L for line. So here is our cable coming down from the unit inside. Same exact colors that you've already seen me hook up. Same exact circumstance too. Just rotate these little plastic pieces around. See, there's number 1, there's number 2, and there's number 3. Do not worry about the colors for these particular 3. Just hook up 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. Now coming in on this side, N stands for neutral. The wire that we just run over from our whip, the white is always neutral when we're talking 120 volts here. You've got your ground, which is going to go to either this ground screw or that ground screw, and then black on 120 volts is your hot. That goes to line. Line stands for hot. I don't know how well this will show up for y'all in this shady area, but I'll just show you a couple connections real quick. There's number 1, the yellow wire. We're going underneath the little flat plate, not the screw itself. Number 2 is the white wire. Now I am not tightening down with the drill on these. As soon as I feel it just get snug, I stop. We will hand tighten these because they're such delicate little screws. Now when it comes to the ground, you can see we have an eyelet here, so I have to completely remove this screw, put it through the eyelet, and put it back. I had to do the same thing on the inside unit, so just like this. Now there's also a cable clamp in here. It's good practice to clamp your cables so they can't be pulled out. Let's see if we can make that happen. Kind of a tight fit. I may have to loosen up that ground. All right, now that'll keep our cable from being pulled out. We'll do the same thing over here on the other ones I just showed you. So all that's left is to hook up that white neutral, the black line, clamp in, and our ground. That's very straightforward. We can put our cover back on and move to our line set. All right, we are in the home stretch now. So the kit came with this sleeve right here that I went ahead and slid over. This is gonna help protect against these sharp edges if you're going through tin like me. And then this collar right here will slide inside of that sleeve. So before I do this, I'm gonna run a really thick bead of some exterior rated silicone all around the outside, so when I press this to it, we've got a nice watertight seal. I'll probably still then come back and silicone around this again, or use rubberized liquid flashing. That stuff is really, really good. I tend to stay away from caulk in circumstances like this because it tends to dry and crack, but silicone stays nice and flexible, so does that rubberized flashing material. Now on the inside, I'll show you in just a second, they include a plastic putty filler, plasticine that you'll put in there, and then I'll probably liquid flash around this as well to make sure no bugs, no air leakage, or no water intrusion happens. Then we're actually going to take this unit and bend gently these copper lines right here, this direction to run and go down to our unit. All right, we got our initial bead underneath. I'll do the remainder of the sealing after we finish disturbing this area, bending these lines. Let's go ahead and start doing that now. Like I said, a nice sweeping bend. We don't want nothing sharp. And I'm gonna wrap all this up with a HVAC tape a little later on. All right, here is our insulated line set. You'll see you'll have a small line and a large line, so you can't really mix these up. It's easy to identify. So what I want to do real quick before we unroll these, I want to take these plastic plugs out and inspect the flares. So I just took the plug out of the end of this one, and what I am looking for, we'll slide this nut back gently. You see this flare We want to see it nice and perfect. We don't want to see any indentations. We don't feel nothing rough on it, and we don't want to see nothing bent in. Otherwise, we would have to redo that flare. I was telling you, they make special tools for flaring copper like this. This is going to make a compression fitting on the other end that is already flared the inverse of this. So we'll inspect all these, make sure they're good. That's because the last thing we want is a leak, losing our refrigerant, and then our DIY system turns into non-DIY. We'd have to call a professional out to fix the flare and to fill the system with refrigerant. So whenever it comes to these line sets, never pull out or unroll from the center. That's with electrical wiring or anything. We want to gently straighten these out, and you don't want to push and kink, so you want to work this out slowly, little by little. Until you get something straight, and not necessarily straight. See, I'm only going to go just a little ways, and then we're going straight down like this, so I don't have to do this for very long. All right, so now we're going to remove these caps. There may be some pressure here, may hear some hissing. That's okay, because we're going to vacuum the system down. There's not refrigerant in these lines. And that's probably because they pressure tested these at factory. It's going to be hard to hold the camera up here and show you, but you're going to need 2 wrenches for this step. It is critical that you have a wrench holding this solid fitting on one side steel, and then this side with the flare that I just showed you, that's the side you'll actually tighten. Copper is so soft, you don't want to try to tighten without a wrench holding the other side, or you could wring the copper itself off. We do not want to over tighten here either. Again, copper being soft, you can damage that flare. There is torque specs in the manual. All right, so now I removed, there was a black cap here on your high and low pressure side. Again, different size nuts, different size lines. You can't mix this up. So this is the point that you could either cut your line set and reflare it if you bought the tool to do that, or I'm going to leave mine coiled up. We're back here on the back side of a shop. Visually, you're not going to see nothing, and by the time I zip tie everything, get it nice and neat, I'm going to be okay with the installation. And what I was explaining a minute ago, you want to put a wrench right here on this side and hold, don't move, as you tighten the loose flared nut side. This is the only side you tighten, but you make sure you have a wrench here fighting back against the pressure that you're turning this way. So now we're at a crucial step, vacuuming the lines down. We want to get them down to negative pressure, so whenever we open up the valves and release the refrigerant that's inside the unit, it goes into the lines that have been vacuumed down properly. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can purchase a cheap vacuum pump off of Amazon, but be aware you will need a specialty adapter to go from these threads to your typical pump threads. I will put both down in the description. I just looked them up because I'm considering getting my own pump. Or you can rent this kit from Della. It's about $100 plus you have to put a security deposit down, ship it back, and then you get your security deposit back. And it comes with a digital gauge setup instead of manual gauge. And to be honest with you, the more I've messed around with this, I had to kind of figure out this whole configuration, move stuff around. I kind of wish I had went with the manual gauge set. That way you can just hang it up here, keep a really good eye on things. Everything's already set up other than the little adapter you need. I just think I would like that set up better. All right, so here is why I much prefer that manual gauge set I was just telling you about. So inside this valve right here is a plunger. It's just like a valve stem on a car tire. So we're actually going to have to remove that so we can pull a vacuum on this line. So this valve right here, as you can see, has a removal tool right there on the end. You see as I'm spinning it? So what you'll have to do is leave the valve open. You actually can't close it with this end. Unscrew the valve stem. Pull it all the way out. Close off. Unscrew this, and now you can pull the valve stem itself out. We're going to set that to the side. Now we can hook up the hose coming from our vacuum pump. And I don't see nobody having to do this with the manual gauge set with the adapter I was just telling you about. That's why I think if I did this again, that's what I'd go with. Now we can power our gauge on. Now we've got an open flow through right here. Once we open this valve up, We're gonna turn our pump on and we're gonna pull vacuum for 20 minutes. You're gonna see some steam and all come out of this as well as you're doing this. And you can see we're pulling vacuum. With this being a vacuometer, the number you see is automatically at vacuum. We're supposed to be around 30 inches of mercury. Looks like we're heading there pretty quick. So we'll let this run 20 minutes, then we'll close this valve completely off, cut our vacuum pump off, and continue to watch this gauge to make for sure it doesn't drop. We'll watch that for 10 to 20 more minutes. If we see it dropping while this valve's closed, that means we've got a leak here, here, or here and here. That's why we haven't put everything up yet. Okay, so it's been exactly 20 minutes. We have been holding at 29.9. So what I'm gonna do is close off this valve, shut off the pump, and then we're gonna sit for 10 minutes and watch and see if we stay at 29.9. All right, so good news. Maybe y'all can see that, maybe you can't. It's been almost 15 minutes. We're still at 29.9, hasn't budged. So I tell you what I'm gonna do. Since this valve is closed, I'm gonna disconnect this hose. And I'm gonna put my valve stem back in. Because we're done with vacuum at this point. Unless we find a leak, and we'll have to start this process over again. Plus, we want to make sure, since we removed our valve stem, there's no potential leak right there. All right, so our valve stem's back in. Now, we're gonna crack this valve right here. You can use an Allen wrench, or I have a T-handle one. I'm gonna crack it a quarter turn for 5 seconds, which pressurizes this line with refrigerant. All right, now we can cut that off. We don't want to put any more refrigerant in than we have to pressurize the line in case we do find a leak. Now, I just took a spray container, put some dish soap in it, shook it all up, and we have a soapy solution. See the soap bubbles? So now we're gonna go around to all these fittings, including these up here, spray them down really well, and see if we see any bubbles blowing out. Well, good news. No leaks detected. I don't see any bubbles, top and bottom. Put our cap back on this. I don't see no leaks there. Now we can open this up, put the rest of our refrigerant in the lines, and we'll just go all the way until this bottoms out. No further. And that's on our low pressure side. All right, it just stopped. We won't go any further. And then down here on our high pressure side, we'll open it up as well. All right, it bottomed out. Replace our caps. Now we'll come over here to our disconnect. Flip this up to the on position. Turn this off because we sure don't need that ugly thing anymore. Let's flip our breaker on. I need to label that as well. And let's go over something real quick. I mounted my thermostat right here. I don't want it in front of the fan or this will be cycling off and on a lot. And I kind of wanted it near the door to where you're letting the most heat, humidity, everything else in. This is gonna be the hottest part of the room, plus this wall catches sunlight. But I didn't want it right here to where anytime you open, you get 80, 90 degree air kicking that off and on. And I can always move this. I may find that this is still too close to the door and we'll put it somewhere else further back in the room. So let's see if this works. Power on. You can see current temperature up there. You see our damper opening. Let's hit mode. Let's turn down and just have this thing kick on. See if we get some cold air out of it. All right, I'm starting to feel air coming. My goodness, this thing's quiet. All right, so there's a button on the moat called swing that I just hit. And as you can see, this swings up and down and just kind of fans air out throughout the room. There is also dampers back there that looks to be adjustable to blow left or right. Oh my goodness. So I'm sure it's not even at its coldest yet, but let's check this out. 41 degrees, 40 degrees, 39 degrees, 37, yeah, 36. This thing is ice cold, almost literally. 35. You gotta be kidding me. 34. I don't know how on earth it's getting that cold, but it feels ice cold. This is awesome. Fan mode, and there's heat. I don't know if it'll go to heat just this quick, but let's see. And this is a small heat pump unit, which should be fine for a small room like this, but that also means very energy efficient, should not use a whole lot of power. All right, I just kicked this to heat, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it's already hotter than I want in this room. So let's just grab some quick specs. It is flying up, already 104, 106, and just taking off, 107. It's gonna get a whole lot hotter than that, y'all, heading to 110. Yeah, so flying up, I just feel the heat blasting out of this. That's gonna be nice in the wintertime, but it's not something I want right now in springtime in Florida. Another cool thing worth mentioning is you don't have to have this, but I decided to download their app so I can control my unit from anywhere if I need to go ahead and turn it down and have it chilling or heat kicked on before I ever make it home. So you can see I can turn down and the unit just responded. So you can go from the remote or anywhere via Wi-Fi from your phone. All right, let's walk through this. I just got done sealing up all of the penetrations with a good quality exterior rated silicone. I had some HVAC tape wrapping. They also included another piece of this insulation foam in the kit to put over your two connectors that we've already done leak checked right there. So I put it over that and then just wrap that in some of this HVAC tape. If you don't like the look of that, go buy you some white tape. But again, I'm on the back side of a barn, house is way over there. You're not gonna see this, but I guess I could always paint that white as well. So I've got everything zip tied together. Again, drain on the bottom, flowing downhill. I put me in a nice stainless strap to the wall and then zip tied all these together for a nice clean look. Now this is something you don't necessarily have to do, and I didn't see it in the manual, but I've always run a drip loop in my HVAC. The thing of it is the top of the drip loop just cannot be higher than the source draining out. Obviously we're several feet away. So what that's gonna do is condensation is gonna run down in here, then it's gonna fill up this drip loop. As it backs up this line, head pressure will naturally push it through the loop and out. But this drip loop always holds a little bit of water, which keeps bugs from coming back in and potentially plugging your system up. So a nice, relatively clean install, I'd say. Y'all, I just cannot get over how quiet this is. It's running. I doubt y'all can even hear that. So after my slab cures for a few more days, I'm just gonna take and drill down into the concrete with my concrete drill, put some Tapcon anchors in there, lock it in. I also forgot to mention, you can buy stands for these to mount to the side of a wall. Say if you're doing it on a second story building, and they just got two legs that stick out, and you can mount the unit to that. So you can do the plastic bases, concrete, you can mount it to a wooden deck, or you can hang it on the wall. All right, y'all, hopefully y'all enjoyed that. This was fun. This is something I've been looking forward to do for a long period of time. Now, time is the test. How well will this unit hold up? All I know is there is a ton of reviews on Amazon. People seem very happy with them. They got positive ratings, so I feel relatively confident about this. And the good news is, I think I'm gonna go ahead and invest in me a pump and gauge set because we're about to be building us an off-grid house. I think I'm gonna pick up one of these that'll do up to 3 zones, do a couple of bedrooms in our big living room, and save myself a ton of money. I'm talking thousands over a traditional HVAC system. I now feel 100% confident in doing this. And by the way, y'all, don't let the vacuum pump scare you. Yes, it's a little bit more of an investment. I think that scares everybody from thinking these are DIY. Kind of always had me myself. The vacuum pump was super easy. And again, I'm gonna put links in the description. I think if you go with a manual gauge set with the proper fitting to where you don't have to take, the valve stem in and out, I think it would be even more DIY friendly, and it's such an easy process. and links to some of these units off of the Amazon that they offer will be down in the description. If you want to support the channel, I am an Amazon affiliate. I get a small kickback every time you use that link. It does not cost you a dime extra, and it helps me make educational and step-by-step content like this for you. We'll catch you on the next one.